Brenda, you ready? Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for December 1st, 2015. First order of business is the roll call. Termination of quorum, please.
Doyle.
Here.
Estes. Here. Roberts. Here. Weifenbach. Here. Wright. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brenda. Next motion of business is adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes to make to the agenda before us? I have a motion by Jerry, I believe, to adopt the agenda. Second by Weifenbach. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
All opposed. Agenda is adopted. Now is the time for general public comment. It's time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue, not limited to items on the agenda. Action, however, will not be taken on any issue not on the agenda except by placement thereon by the unanimous vote of the aldermen present. I don't have any general public comment forms, so we'll go ahead and move on to consent items 1 through 19. Public comment is open on items 1 through 19. Do not have any speaker request forms for items 1 through 19, so I'll close public comment. And would any alderperson like to remove an item from the consent calendar be considered separately? Alderman Weifenbach, please.
Item number 18, please.
18. Any others? I'd look for a motion to adopt the balance. Motion by Estes, second by Roberts. Any discussion? The motion is to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number 18. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 18, which is to authorize a harvest of 100 deer for the 2015-2016 season, and we'll go to Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just wanted to say that there has been a push for the Urban Wildlife Committee to look at authorizing archery deer hunting within the city limits in specific areas that would make sense. So I just wanted to pass that on to my colleagues, so if they see something come forward in the future that would coexist with this program. Sioux Falls operates a program that's very successful. The game fishing parks is behind it 150%. They really would like to see something move forward, so we're working through the logistics of it and seeing what can happen. Thank you.
Move to approve.
You have a motion to approve by Estes, second by Roberts. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adoption?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to non-consent items number 20 and 21. I do have one speaker request form now that public comment is open. On item number 20, Barbara Landers. And Barbara, I see you actually have the item. Would you rather speak at the item or go ahead and speak now?
I'll wait.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on. Item number 20 is a discussion on septic permit fees in the 1 mile jurisdiction, and this has been brought forward from a member of the public, Barbara Landers, and if you wouldn't mind approaching the podium, Ms. Landers, you can have the floor.
My name is Barbara Landers, and I am a resident of Pennington County. I live within the 3 mile limits of Rapid City, actually the 1 mile limit of Rapid City. And I am subject to the septic inspection. I have fully complied with the inspection, and the department has received all of the paperwork necessary. What I object to is the fee. I am not a resident of Rapid City. I receive no services from Rapid City. I do not need a license from Rapid City. My septic system is fully in compliance with the regulations of Pennington County. And I don't think that I need to be taxed by Rapid City with a fee. I've already paid a considerable amount of money to have the septic tank inspected and pumped. And I don't see why Rapid City should be able to collect any additional money from me. The state law does not provide for Rapid City being paid to inspect my septic system or have my septic system inspected. I reiterate, I'm completely within compliance. And again, reiterate that I received no services from Rapid City. I'm not allowed to vote in Rapid City. I have no representation in Rapid City. And I don't see why I should pay Rapid City anything for the privilege of inspecting my septic system. Also, your own ordinance provides, in the very first part, if another legal entity regulates the intent of this chapter outside the city limits, which would be Pennington County with its ordinance, but within the 1 mile city limits, the city has the option of sanctioning regulation outside city limits to the other government entity. I think Pennington County is more than capable of regulating my septic system. Are there any questions?
We'll go ahead and open up the floor for discussion, and if you would stand by if anyone has questions for you. Thank
Sure.
you. All right, so we are on item number 20. Do I have any discussion from the committee?
Move to acknowledge.
I have a motion to acknowledge from Estes,
Second.
second by Wyffenbach. Is there any discussion? Alderman Roberts, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I ask a question of, I imagine, our city engineer, or of Joel Landine, our city attorney? Joel, can you tell me what the cost is of this permit?
No, I've heard it, but I don't recall off the top of my head. I'm sure that
It's $20.
And what's the intent of that cost of that permit?
Dale, if you would.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The intent of the permit is exactly that. It is a permit that is good for 6 years that is required by property owners within the 1 mile as well as within city limits to ensure that their septic tanks are in compliance with both city and state regulations.
So does the city inspect on top of the county inspecting them?
The county does not inspect, nor does the city inspect. The way our regulations are written, as well as the counties, is the private haulers are the ones that actually do the inspection and then send that inspection into whatever jurisdiction has the authority over that particular septic system. So for instance, one of the septic haulers in town would go out and pump somebody's tank and do an inspection, fill out a form, send it to the city. The city then would then issue the permit to the property owner that owns the septic system if everything is in compliance.
I guess I'm wondering, is there overlapping permit fees in the 1 mile limit?
There is not. Pennington County has acknowledged that the city will do the permitting and inspection within the 1 mile jurisdiction. The county has not, based on my last conversations with them, is not willing to take the 1 mile on. They have their plate full with all the other septic systems within their jurisdictional boundary.
Thank you, Dale. And if you would, Madam Chair, can I ask the city attorney a question?
Yes, sir.
Joel, is there any legal issues with this, with us? Because Ms. Landers had the question of, because she cannot vote in the city, should the city be issuing permits to somebody outside of the city limits?
no. Obviously, we looked at this at the time and believe that it's legally permissible. We have police powers, which is to protect public health, safety, and welfare within 1 mile of the city limits. This is a perfect example of that, where what somebody does within the 1 mile and impacts the groundwater within 1 mile could impact within the city and affect the quality of the water within the city. So we looked at that. It's not a tax. It is a fee for administering and issuing the permit. And that is the fact that we don't go out and do the inspection is quite frankly why the fee is so low. I mean, for 6 years, $20 for 6 years is basically the cost. Probably doesn't even fully cover the cost of administering the program, but it at least defrays the cost of administering the program and monitoring that. As Mr. Tech indicated, the county does not. They have their plate full with the rest of the county, so they've basically given us authority or agreed that we will do the regulation within 1 mile of the city limits. They'll handle the stuff outside the city limits. So they don't want to, nor do they probably have the resources to deal with the septics within 1 mile of the city, which is why we're doing it essentially for them.
Madam Chairman, may I respond?
Ms. Landers, Mr. Landine, and Mr. Roberts have the floor currently. If you're asked a
Thank you.
question, then you may respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Madam Chair, can I ask another question of the city engineer?
Sure, Mr. Tech, if you would.
Thank you, Dale. Do you happen to know what the permitting fee costs for the county and how long that lasts?
It's $20 for 6 years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yield. Anyone else? We do have a motion to acknowledge on the floor. Mr. Weifenbach.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that if you live in the 1 mile district, the city handles the administration. If you live outside of that, the county is going to handle the administration. So if I'm mistaken on that, somebody could set me straight. So either way, my understanding is that you pay that $20 fee to the city if you're within the jurisdiction of the city. Outside of that, you would pay it to the county. So either way, you would have to, I mean, in the county, when we put this thing together, the county said, well, that's too much for us to handle, so the city said, we'll take it on. So either way, you would have to pay the fee. Is Ms. Landers, if I asked her a question,
Certainly.
is that the way you understand it, or did you think
Would you please repeat what you said?
since you live in the 1 mile, you pay the city for the administration fee? If the city did not take that on, you would be paying the county. So either way, you would be paying the $20 administration
I'm willing to
fee.
pay the county. I'm not willing to pay the city.
Yeah.
I have no responsibility to pay for administration costs for the city of Rapid City. That's
Okay.
not my responsibility.
Okay, I understand that,
I'm
Ms.
fully in compliance.
Sure.
I think Rapid City can cover its own paperwork.
Right, okay. So the point would be, for you to handle that, you need to go to your county commissioners, I would say, and ask them to take over the 1 mile limit.
I
if
don't
that's the
think
way you
so.
would
I
feel
think
about
that you
it. Yeah.
need to waive this fee.
We,
We have differing opinions.
okay, then I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion on the floor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 21, request from Dream Design
May I ask
International,
what
Inc.
has been moved?
They've acknowledged the discussion, Ms. Landers,
Thank you.
and are not taking any action on it. So thank you for
Then
bringing it
this will
forward.
be referred to the city council.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I
Request from,
appreciate your time.
thank you. Item number 21, request from Dream Design International, Inc. for Pat Hall to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance 12.08.060 along lots 1 and 2 of Tract A of Walpole Addition and return sidewalk surety. The floor is open. Alderman Roberts, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see Mr. Hall is sitting in the audience. Can I ask you a question, Pat?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I know that Lot 2, that southern lot, has been used by the hospital at times for a staging area when they do construction. Do you know, are they going to be using that area for staging in their latest round of upgrades they're going to be doing here in the future?
They haven't issued the contract, as I understand it. They're in discussion with contractors. One contractor's called us, and we told them yes, they could use the lot. It's always been the policy to allow them to use that lot during construction.
Thank you very much. One of the reasons I was asking that is because if we put that sidewalk in there now and they use it for construction staging in the future, more than likely they're going to end up breaking out a lot of that sidewalk in the construction phase. So,
Based on the last construction that I think was 2 years ago, that they were there for 6 months, that there's no way they couldn't have. Because, they park heavy equipment in big cranes.
could you give me just a little bit of a brief history on this property and
Sure.
why there wasn't sidewalk put in 30 years ago when it was built?
30 years ago, I was probably about Brad Estes's age, so I don't remember. But here's what happened. When they built it, they didn't think there was going to be traffic on that sidewalk, as I understand it, or along the front of the I Institute or that commercial property that is the adjoining lot. The next adjoining lot is the drainage pond for all the water that runs off of the parking lot at the hospital. So sometimes there's 4 to 6 feet of water there. So the theory was, hey, until they get that done and completed in the reuse of it, they didn't want sidewalk down there, but the city said, hey, let's post a bond. And they were talking to a nonprofit, and so it wasn't like money out of their pocket, if you know how a nonprofit works. So it's been almost 30 years that this bond's been posted. There's never been a complaint about no sidewalk, because there is a sidewalk on the north part of the I Institute, none on what I would call the east side of the I Institute, and none on Lot 2. Those bonds cost $400 a year, which to some people is an insignificant amount, but I feel that it's not right to just continue the bond on paying this bond after 30 years. And I'd like to give you a little background further than that on the I Institute so you understand what its contribution has been to the community and why we're here. I got involved 10 years ago with the I Institute. At that time, it was a nonprofit organization. And if you know how nonprofits work, you don't have real estate taxes, and you don't have some of the income taxes paid. When they asked me to get involved in the building, I said I would not unless we became a for-profit business. When we became a for-profit business, the taxes we paid equated out to approximately 92 homes in the area. So it isn't like we're trying to ask for something for nothing, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. And I know it's a small amount of money, but I think we're willing to sign a waiver of right to protest so that any time the city wants the sidewalks in, we'll put them in. The other thing that I think is important, on the new phased plan for the hospital that hasn't been let, I have not seen the bid, but it's my understanding that the big pond or slough, as I would call it, that's on the south side of our two lots is going to become a parking lot for the hospital, and it'll eliminate some of that if that's the way it ends up built. And then we'll be more than happy and think we should have sidewalks in on the I Institute lot, and then we can decide what to do with that non-construction, the lot that has not been built on. Thank you. Anything else?
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Madam Chair, can I ask the city engineer a question?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Tech, I'm just curious, after all these years, why the city is asking now to put these sidewalks in?
The city is not asking to put those sidewalks in. Actually, this is a request that came from Mr. Hall.
Yes, if I can answer that, and Dale's and his office have been real helpful. It's a simple thing. This has to be, the city council years ago said, post a bond. And so now it's not fair for staff to say, don't post a bond. Staff said, you need to go through the process and go to city council. So that's why we're here. I think it's ridiculous to keep posting the bond and spending the money for a bond when the city uses the philosophy of a waiver of right to protest, accomplishes the same thing, and that's what we're willing to do, and would like to have the city council understand where we're coming from and agree to that.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Can I ask another question? Sorry. So, Dale, why exactly, and I've read this, I guess I'm just not understanding, why is the city not supporting a warp on this?
Staff's recommendation, there's two lots at issue here, Lot 1 and Lot 2. Lot 1 is currently fully developed. Typically, that would be the trigger of installing sidewalks. The bond that Mr. Hall refers to was posted for both properties. So in order to separate that issue or the two lots, current standards require that when you build on the lot, that's when you install the sidewalk. Staff's recommendation is Lot 2 that is undeveloped right now shouldn't have a bond, doesn't need a bond. When they come in for a building permit, that's the appropriate time for them to build sidewalks. On the flip side of that is Lot 1 is fully developed, the sidewalk should be put in place. We've been carrying a bond since 2001, I believe. Now's the time to either install the sidewalk, to get rid of the bond, or dispose of it in some other manner, and that's why Mr. Hall is in front of you today, asking you to waive the bond requirement and sign a warp, which really doesn't do much. The city council has the authority to order that sidewalk in at any time.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, can I ask Mr. Hall another question?
You may.
Just out of curiosity, I'm wondering, why would you not want to install the sidewalk on Lot 1 right now and then waive Lot 2?
We've done the lot, we've installed the sidewalk on the north side of the Eye Institute. That's where the foot traffic is. To put a sidewalk in that just goes on the west side of the property and would only go down to Lot 2, which is the construction lot, and then adjoin Lot 3, which is the retention pond, makes no sense. And I think we've got, like you said, almost 30 years of proof. No citizens have ever complained about there not being a sidewalk there. I think it's a hazard to take your sidewalk right down to next to a heavy industrial construction site, and I refer to it as that's the type of use that it is when you have construction equipment on it.
I think that what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I'm hearing is you saying that you'd be willing to sign warp, and then when all the sidewalk can be constructed from Fairmont to Fifth Street, you'd be willing to put the sidewalk in then?
Absolutely. I think it's a risk, a safety risk to require the sidewalk in front of the Eye Institute on the west side. And we're hoping this construction that appears is going to happen in the hospital will alleviate that risk, and we'll be glad to. We're good citizens, pay a lot of taxes, and want it to be right. It's a safety issue as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Why would we try to direct traffic down to a lot that's going to have a lot of heavy equipment stored on it? The project that's going on at the hospital will be a 2 to 3 year construction period, and I suspect they'll use our lot. Once they're done, and while they're finishing, we can decide what we want to do with that lot. Whether it be build another building or add on to the existing building we have, move the parking lot over. So, we'll, in either event, we'll want to put the sidewalks in, probably get it ahead of city request, although I will say Dale Tech's on top of things pretty sharp, so maybe he'll be notifying, but we'll do it as soon as we're notified, I guess, weather permitting, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to waive the sidewalk installation and add a waiver of right to protest.
A motion and a second to agree to the request and tie a warp to this particular property.
Then I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
My first comment will be a little bit off of what we're discussing today, but since you're here, I'll take the opportunity to maybe add on to some of the things you said about the Eye Institute. I was there yesterday with my mom, who's been going there for probably over 20 years now, and she was diagnosed with glaucoma, and her doctor, Dr. Nixon, who's now going to retire, unfortunately, January 1, is a huge hit to our community having him leave and then trying to find someone to replace him. But her eyesight was basically at a loss. She would have been lost. She would have lost her eyesight. Dr. Nixon and the Eye Institute was able to save her eyesight. She's just celebrated her 79th birthday. She can't see real well, but she can see enough that I don't have to take care of her. So I can't even thank the Eye Institute for what it's done for the city enough. I think your request for the sidewalk was well within reason. I think the Fairmont Boulevard part is the part that gets most of the traffic. I don't know that a sidewalk's necessary at this point. I think a waiver of right to protest, understanding that the hospital is looking at some opportunities over there that are going to be very huge for our communities. So that's why we made
Ron, I thank you for saying that, and I think it's important that the people know, and I know it's been a long meeting for you, but if you remember years ago, there was a problem at the Eye Institute, and
Absolutely, Pat.
it was gonna fold. And I went to the doctors and said, let's not let this happen. Dr. Nixon was one of the original. By the way, we've interviewed 2 new young doctors that are very well trained, that both of them may come in to replace Nixon. That's how much work he gets done.
That's awesome, and you're right. I failed to mention that. It hadn't been for you, that Eye Institute might not be here today. They ran
I'm
into some-
convinced of it, but hey, I'm a Rapid Cityan just like you guys are.
It's huge for our city, and anybody that's had to use the Eye Institute understands that. And you've had a family member or somebody who has issues with their eyes. It's awesome. We appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, I do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.